Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a series of videos about SolidWorks scripting with Python, and in this video we are going to continue how to create a sketch. In last video we talked about how to create a point, line, center line, circle, rectangle, and polygon. And in this video, we are going to talk about slots, offset entities, mirror entities, linear sketch pattern, and circular sketch pattern. Okay, let's start. For the start, I'm going to create a new sketch, and I like to talk about how to create a new slot. Here we can see in SolidWorks we have 4 different options to create a new slot, but I'm going to talk about center point, straight slot, and 3-point arc slot because 2 others are very similar with the 2 first I named them. Okay, I'm going to start a macro, click center point, straight slot, and create a slot here. Okay, I'm going to stop the macro, save it, and open it. We can see here in the SolidWorks with create a sketch slot, we are able to create a new slot. I'm going to search it in API help. First, I open API help and search for it under Sketch Manager. We can see here we have different options here. I'm going to talk about it. The 2 first options allow us to specify which kind of slots we are going to use. Then we have widths. I'm going to talk about it later. And then we can see here we have 3 different points: x1, y1, z1, 2, x3, y3, and z3. And then we have 2 other options, which in the center arc direction we are going to use counterclockwise or 1. And for add dimension, you can choose true or false. And when you choose true, in the SolidWorks we can see the dimensions, but if you choose false, SolidWorks will not show us the direction in the document for us. Okay, I'm going to copy this code from Marco and paste it in Visual Studio. First, I'm going to run my libraries and then connect SolidWorks to Python. Okay, now I'm going to replace these 2 arguments with their integers value. So for the first one, I'm going to look at API help. For the first one, I'm going to click here, and we can see here SolidWorks use center line. So we are going to use center line, which means we are going to use 1. So instead of this argument, I'm going to put 1. For the second one, back, for the second one, we can see here it's use center center. So center is 0. I'm going to place 0 here. And the next 3 arguments is x1, y1, and z1. I'm going to show it here. When I wanted to create this slot, first I choose this point, then I choose the second point, which will be here, and I didn't use the third point. So in this case, we are not going to use third point. So x3, y3, and z3 will be 0. As you can see here, x3, y3, and z3, all of them are 0. And another thing we use is weights. So here, let me show you. Sorry. The weight of this slot is 82.42 millimeters. As we can see this number here, and in the API help, we can see it in the third place. Okay, so for creating a new slides, these two are specify which kind of slot we are going to use. Then we need to specify the weights of slots. I'm going to put, for example, 19 millimeters. Then we should specify x1, y1, and z1. So I'm going to use 0, 0, and 0 for them. Then we are going to specify x2, y2, and z2, which will be this point. As you can see here, x argument is 179 millimeters, as we can see here, and y is equal to 0 and z is equal to 0 too, as we can see here. So I'm going to put, for example, 200 millimeters. And as I said, we don't have the third point. So 0, 0, and 0 is the arguments we are going to use. For the two last, we are going to use one for counterclockwise, and we are going to use false because we don't want to show dimensions in SolidWorks. Okay, I'm going to delete this slot first and rearrange my pages. Okay, now I'm going to run this block of code. As you can see, a new slot is created for me. And the first point is 0, 0, and 0. The second point is 200, 0, and 0. And for the weights, we can see here the weight is 90 millimeters, as we specified here. So we are now able to create a slots in SolidWorks. Next, we are going to create a slot, but with another option, 3-point arc slot. I'm going to delete this slot first and start a macro, create a 3-point arc slot, then choose my first point, then second point, and my third point. And at last, we need to specify the weights. I'm going to put it around 91 millimeters. So, okay, I'm going to stop the macro and save it and then open it. As we can see here, the function is the same, create a sketch.slot, but there are some differences, such as for the first and second arguments. And as we can see here, we have now the third point. So I'm going to copy this code and paste it in Visual Studio. And then I'm going to edit it. First, we need to change the first argument and the second argument. For the first argument, I'm going to see API help and SolidWorks use 3-point arc. So I'm going to use 3-point arc 2. I will put 3 here, as we saw in API help. And for the second one, we can see it use center, center, which means center, center will be 0. Okay, I'm going to put 0 here too. Next, we should specify the weights of the slots. I'm going to put 90 millimeters for the weight as the above. For the first point, we are going to use 0, 0, and 0. For the second point, we are going to put 500 millimeters. And for the second point, I'm going to use I'm going to edit this one. And for the two last, I'm not going to change them. So let me rearrange my SolidWorks for another time. Okay. First, I'm going to delete this sketch, run this block of code. Okay. Now we are going to verify it. For the weights first, we can see here the weight is 90 millimeters, as we specified here. The first point should be 0, 0, and 0. The first point location is 0, 0, and 0. For the second point, we should have 500, 0, and 0. As we can see here, for the second point, we have 500, 0, and 0. And for the third point, we put 200, 100, and 0. But when we click on the third point, we can see there are some difference. For X, it is 250 millimeters, but we put 200. And for Y, we put 100, but it is 103 millimeters. So SolidWorks try to choose third point as we specified it in our code. But as you can see, the X is not very flexible to change. But for Y, we can change it. For example, I'm going to change the Y to, for example, 300. And for running this code another time, we can see here the third point's Y is now near 300 as we specified it there. Okay, let me delete all these sketch. And now we are going to talk about offset entities. Okay, I'm going to create a simple sketch first. For example, 2 lines. And I'm going to use macro. First, I'm going to select one of my lines. Then I'm going to click offset entities. Here I can specify the amounts of the offset. For example, 10 mm is fine. I'm going to just click OK. Then stop the macro and open it. We can see here we need to first click on our sketch. Then we are going to use a sketch offset 2. I'm going to copy this line and paste it in Visual Studio. Okay. I'm going to search for this function in API help. Okay. Under Sketch Manager, we can see here it gets different arguments. We are going to talk about the arguments. First one is offset, which will be offset value. And here we can use negative value. Let me show you in this sketch. As you can see, let me delete it first. As you can see, I used 10 millimeters offset, but I can use reverse. We don't have reverse option in scripting, so if I want use reverse 10 millimeters offset, I'm going to put minus 10 millimeters instead of 10 millimeters or positive 10 millimeters. Okay. And for the rest arguments, both directions means you need offset outside and inside. Chain, it will be true or false. You can use this option as it suits you. Cap ends, it's like the same for above. It depends on what sketch you are going to offset or even make construction. And for the add dimension, you're able to use true to show the dimensions or false to not show the dimensions. So I'm going to just test this function. First, I'm going to delete the offset. For the offset, we are going to use 20 millimeters. And for the rest, we are going to use false, true, 0, 0. And for the last one, I'm going to use true to show the dimensions. And I'm going to select this line first. You can select it with select by ID. And I'm going to run this piece of code. You can see here, I'm able to create an offset here. And for showing you how to create a reverse offset, I'm going to put a minus. And you can see here, I'm not able to create inside offset and outside offset for my sketch. I'm going to delete this sketch first. And let's talk about mirror entities. For using mirror entities, first you need to create your shape or a sketch. I'm going to create a simple circle here. Then you need to create a center line. To use mirror entities in Python scripting, it's better to use center line instead of line. So I'm going to sketch a center line here. And I'm going to use macro, a starter macro. First, I'm going to select my shape and my center line. Then I'm going to use mirror entities. And you can see here a mirror entities is created for me. I'm going to stop the macro, save it, and open it another time. This is the code we like to use, a sketch mirror, and it is very easy to use. So I think we didn't have to use macro at all. First, you need to select your circle or your sketch, then select your center line, and then use part.sketch mirror. So to show you, I'm going to select my sketch, then my center line, and I'm going to run this code. Sorry, I forgot parentheses. And you can see here I'm able now to create a mirror. I'm going to select these two, which are select by ID, and paste them here first to test the program. Okay, I'm going to run this. There are some problem. Okay, nothing. We don't have nothing in Python. So I'm going to use Python com.nothing. I'm going to copy it and paste it here. Okay, I'm going to run it another time. As we can see here, this shape and the center line are selected. So I'm going to copy this code and paste it here too. So now we should be able to create a mirror entity just with running this piece of code. As you can see, we are now able to create a mirror entities. Okay, I'm going to delete these two because we don't need them. Okay, let's talk about linear sketch pattern. I'm going to start a macro, click on my sketch, click linear sketch pattern, and here we can see we have different options. First one is for x-axis and second one for the y-axis. And for example, for x-axis we have a spacing. I'm going to put 110 millimeters. We have number of entities we need, and then we have degree here. For y direction we have a spacing and number, so they are the same, but I'm going to just use x-axis. Okay, save the macro and then open it. We can see we are able to create a linear sketch pattern using this function. I'm going to copy this line of code and paste it in Visual Studio first. Then I'm going to search for this function in API help. API help. Okay, on the sketch manager, we can see a different option we have. I'm going to explain them. Num(x) will be total number of instants we have in x-axis. For example, we choose, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In this case, yes, we can see here 7. Then we have num(y), which will number of instances in y direction. We chose 1, so we don't have any pattern in y direction. The next is a spacing x and a spacing 1. We chose 110 millimeters in this case. We have angle x and angle y. So we don't use any angle y in this example, but for angle x we put 0. For delete instance, we are going to pass just an empty string, as we can see here. Okay. And for the others, we are just going to use the default one. Okay, I'm going to delete this one. And a little bit change this code. For example, I'm going to put 10 for number of instances, and for example 4 for y direction, and for the x spacing I'm going to put 100. For y spacing I'm going to put 200 millimeters, and I don't like to change other arguments. I'm going to select the sketch and then run this block of code. We can see here we are now able to create a pattern or linear sketch pattern. We have 10 instances in X direction and 4 instances in Y direction. Okay, so now we are able to create a linear sketch pattern in SolidWorks using Python. I'm going to delete this pattern and let's talk about circular sketch pattern. I'm going to search for it in API help because when you are using macro in SolidWorks, it will create an edit circular sketch pattern for you, not create. So I'm going to search it directly in API help. It will be create circular sketch, step and repeat on the sketch manager. And I'm going to explain all of these arguments. But first, let me show you how circular sketch pattern works in SolidWorks scripting. It is not as the same we have it in SolidWorks. We first click on our sketch and then, for example, we are going to click on a point. For example, I don't know, here. And SolidWorks is going to pattern this sketch around this point. But in scripting, SolidWorks doesn't allow us to choose a point. Instead, we are forced to choose two arguments. First one is the distance from this point and the center of the sketch we are going to pattern, and then the angle. For example, in this case, let me create this line. The distance will be 850 millimeters and the angle will be around 14.5 degrees. So you need to specify these two arguments to be able to create a circular sketch pattern. Okay, and I think it's worth to mention that the angle should be in radian, not in degrees. So be cautious when you are going to choose the angle. Okay, let's take a look to API help. Arc radius will be this line, 850 millimeters. Arc angle will be this angle in radian, not in degree. Pattern number will show the number of patterns you want, 1, 2, 3, or even 5, or whatever number you want. Pattern spacing will be in radian too. Pattern spacing will be the space or distance between your patterns, and it is not in millimeters, it is in radian. Pattern rotate specify to rotate or not rotate the pattern. It is not very important. We are going to use the default, and for the rest of them we are going to use the default because they are not very important. For example, radius dim, angle dim, and create number instance dim are just some graphics that are showing in SolidWorks documents. So we are going to just use defaults. Okay, let's create a circular pattern here. I'm going to delete this point and I'm going to create a new block of code, and then I'm going to copy this line of code and paste it in Visual Studio. Okay, we are going to replace each of arguments as we like. First, I'm going to copy this part and place it here. Okay, for the arc radius, I'm going to use 500 millimeters. For the arc angle, I'm going to use 1 radian. Pattern number 3. Pattern spacing 1 radian. For pattern rotate, I'm going to pass 2. For delete instance, I'm going to pass empty string. And for showing radius and other stuff, I'm going to put 2. Okay, for the angle and create number. So let me rearrange it. Okay, I'm going to select my sketch and run this code. As you can see here, now I'm able to create a circular pattern, and let me explain each of arguments in SolidWorks document. First, we choose 500 for arc radius. So as you can see here, this is a point, and SolidWorks choose 500 for us. Next, I choose 1 radian for arc angle, and you can see here, this is 1 radian. Okay, it doesn't allow me, so let me do this instead. Okay, and this is 1 radian. 1 radian is equal to 57.3 degree. So this is 1 radian or 57 degree. And the number of instants, I chose 3. So now I have 3 sketch here. And for the spacing, I choose 1 radian or 57 degree. As you can see here, SolidWorks is showing me the arc radius, spacing, and the number of instants. Okay guys, this is the end of video about how to create a new sketch. In summary, we talk about how to create a slots, how to create a offset entities, mirror entities, linear sketch pattern, and even circular sketch pattern. See you guys in next videos, and goodbye.